Okay, as was being explained before, what we have is we're creating this query from PHP and we're storing it into a PHP string. Now that PHP string is then queried and then we have our data that is then generated as a result. Now, what this says is if the movie is not in our database, we're going to add a shell. And here's where we are talking about standing on the shoulders of giants. What we're going to do is we're going to grab some things from IMDb and we're going to place it into our database to kind of create a shell, which will then be generated. Now, Chris was good enough and already started showing the implementation for something that is already there, and that uses these echo commands. Pretty much what happens is even if the thing's not found, you're going to echo in all of this HTML, which is then going to be generated onto the page. What echo does is when the PHP is called from loop meta, which is include dbresults.php, which was the other file that we were on, it is going to it's going to run that script, and wherever the thing says echo this, it's going to generate that into the specific HTML, which is the entire thing as a whole. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this function called check. That's going to check if the specific thing is in the database, and if it's not, then if this movie is not in our database, or if this specific bit of information is not in our database, then we're going to ask our user to add it. Now, that is the key to our program, is that we allow users to add data to our project. And that is what allows us to go with adding user descriptions, add user comments, go along those lines. And now I'm going to show you this. We're going to do a movie that we don't have in our database currently. Let's think of one. Let's see if The Dark Knight is in ours. I could check for a fact if it was by looking in the database, but okay. Here we have it. Notice that some information is not in it. Now, the shell was created, and you can see like the IMDb tag, which is one of the things that we are grabbing because we can't just generate that ourselves. That is available out in the open. Um, but let's just say that we go into our um, database, and you can see right now that none of this has the Dark Knight on it. But we have created a shell. So if we go to browse again and go ahead and refresh this page, at the bottom you'll see, hey, the Dark Knight. There it is. With the IMDb tag, we got a description of it. We have everything. And then if you go into rating, which uses the ID screen media, you will see that, well, I can't find it, but let's go ahead and play with this. Now, let's say user description is going to be, let's just call it user description, user comment. Actually, let's just make this easy. I'm going to enter in all these things. My user comment is just going to be user comment information. I am a 22-year-old male, so I'm just going to go ahead and add these things. Go ahead and hit submit. Now, as you can see up here, which is not available on the screen right now, if you go down and see the recommended, all that, that was just real quick, right here. Those are git commands, which are um, going to be used by our PHP to gather information, then fill in the database. So now if we enter in the Dark Knight with our new information added, then you have something a little bit different. Um, you have the latest user description, the latest user comment, the commenter. We also have ways for other people to add in their own comments extra to it, and those will be displayed as the latest user one. And we also have a backend side with the MySQL in order to delete comments and stuff like that that are inappropriate, just basic admin rights. Um, with that said, That pretty much goes over our implementation and basic queries, but a quick look at what is happening when that query is made. Um, what we're going to do is we're using some of our MySQL, which was the SQL commands that we were doing before. And we're inserting into the database. And based upon this, like this is the IMDb ID, which we are using for ours as the screen media ID, except we're removing the appended TT before it because it is added by IMDb, and our screen media ID is an integer. So we're using that as our primary key, and then we're just basically doing this. And as you can see, this is just a test one, a little bit of test code, and then we're just adding in whatever we want um, at that point.